beautiful people, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I am bringing you back my friend and my guest, Indi. So she is the co-host of Living Holistically with Dayne and Indi. And if you yet to listen to that episode, please go and check it out. They have shared amazing wisdom on living a quality life and some amazing relationship tips. Now, I have invited Indi back to share her own personal story because everyone's got stories. And I am so thankful that she was so raw and so real and so brave for sharing all parts of herself. So if you are someone who has perhaps family issues, family traumas, or maybe you are facing it right now, you are going to find this episode inspiring. If you would like to know why and how you can start taking more responsibility of your life, well, Indi is going to share a few things with you on how you can start and what you need to be more aware of. There are many ways that you can help yourself, to embrace yourself, to heal yourself, to love, to live life differently. And I know that you're curious on what areas in your life that you can enhance so you can live the best quality of life that you deserve. So continue watching. Just a heads up though, because Indi and I had such a great chat, this episode is going to be in 2 parts. Now please do a screenshot and tag Indi and I on social. We will appreciate the love. And enjoy!
Indi, thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me again.
I can't wait for you to share your story and how you got to where you are today. But before we share your story, I would love to know, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good. Just trying to, as I said, go with the flow, surrender to it, not overthink things so much. But yeah, I'm glad it's really, really warm here. I think it's the warmest it's going to be in like 6 months. So yeah.
What's the degree today?
22.
Oh, yes. That's high for
super warm for us. It's like a heat wave.
For those who are listening and watching, they might be like 22 degrees. That's like not very warm, but it is.
I know, for those in Brisbane, North Coast, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, for people who don't know you, I would like you to bring everyone back to before you start the podcast. Actually, maybe go a bit further back before you, I guess, have your self-awareness.
Yeah, that was, I guess we could go back to where I was out of school and I was living in share houses and living, very unaware of how to deal with my emotions and just doing all the, I guess, usual things of going out, drinking, and not really taking much care for what I ate, even though I thought I was quite good because, I had pretty good taste in food. But now I guess I know I'm like, the cold sourdough probably didn't really cut it, who knows what's in that. But I guess in a sense, like I was doing my best. I hadn't really been taught much by my parents, and a lot of the pain that I was feeling was from my parents, particularly my mum. So that would sort of come up every now and again and trigger me to drink to the point that I would, like forget about it, like just bury it. Like it was my way of coping. So even though I could never really keep up with people, I found like people that in the crowds that I was hanging out with that were going out lots, even though I say, I went out lots and drank a lot, it still comparatively wasn't that much because I was already struggling with my health, like with my kidneys. I had learned growing up that one of them was a bit weak and small and wasn't functioning properly, like wasn't functioning very well. So that sort of led me to, I guess, being a little bit, slower than everyone with that sort of thing, not being able to just, go out every single weekend. So that was, I guess, a blessing in a way. And then when that sort of came to a head because I was so, I had such low immunity from the kidney infections that I'd had as a teenager in high school and also surgery I'd had as an early teenager, that had really, as I know now, stripped away all my beneficial bacteria, all my protective bacteria, and so all my immune system. So when I was then open to getting more infections and parasites, I was then blasted with, what the doctor called the bleach of antibiotics. So as you can imagine, just nothing left. And that led to me having all these sorts of symptoms that just didn't go away, like chronic fatigue, brain fog, yeast overgrowth, like just, not really being able to function very well. And that's what really got me into digging deeper, because when I went to the doctors, they didn't really have any solutions per se. No one really knew what it was. There wasn't any clear answers. Some of the symptoms I was just told to take steroids for, antidepressants for, all these really harsh antifungals that now I know are really damaging to the liver, but they don't really, what I learned, have a step when you get to that stage where everything's very systemic and just, I guess, it's gotten so bad that your body can't repair itself, on its own as the way you're living. That's when things started to, I guess, turn around and crumble. And I really had this moment of like, I've got to do something, because I can't just keep living this way. I don't want to always feel sick. I don't want to always feel like I'm just struggling to get through work and, wanting to fall asleep after lunch, that sort of thing. I was like, this is not sustainable, I guess, to feel.
How old were you?
And, I'm talking about the time when I'm about 18 to 20, that sort of time when I really pushed my body and also probably wasn't, giving it enough love and nutrition and, rest, I guess. But no matter, it's sort of like that thing where, no matter how much you rest, you still don't feel good and energized and just, like that vitality. Just being chronically fatigued and having all those symptoms got me to search further. And I was fortunately, the boyfriend I was with at the time was already looking at ways to fix his own gut problems. And so that got me into like learning about the gut and the whole, basis of immune system and the bacteria in our guts and our own microbiomes and how much we upset them with different things like birth control and antibiotics and all the different medications and alcohol. Just, the list goes on, obviously. But some things that I wouldn't have even thought had an impact on it because we use them so regularly. Like, any painkillers. I was definitely using a lot of painkillers because of the pain that I had with my kidneys. So that's how I'd sort of, grown up dealing with it. Obviously, I was using natural things like hot water bottles, but I grew up, I gained a real tolerance to painkillers, which is not what you want. So, painkillers were sort of useless to me at this point, except the really strong ones. I don't know if you know Endone. It's like
I have heard of it.
Yeah, like a morphine-based one. But that's really, really strong. But that would be the only thing my body would, sort of respond to, which is crazy. And I think I've reached a point with my health where I guess most people reach at middle age where they're like, oh my gosh, everything's falling apart, like because of the way I've been living, like I'm getting all these chronic illnesses. But for me, it was like before I was 20. So it was just divine timing that I had this boyfriend that, was already doing some stuff with his health. And that really got me into being more conscious and looking at ways that I could, he sort of told me that I didn't have to just suffer or just deal with these, whatever the emotions were or my gut was. And so, it really led me down that path of looking into that more.
Thank you, ex-boyfriend.
Yeah. He's a good one.
Yes. Are you guys still in touch?
We have been. Like, we ended on like a very good basis, obviously, for that respect. And I think I just had like an overwhelming sense of gratitude for him and being in my life when things ended, because I would not be in this position I am today. And ironically, I probably wouldn't have met my partner now if it hadn't have been what he introduced me to. So that's, is a very weird divine connection when you look back at things. Yeah.
things always happen for a reason. I want to ask though, 'cause I think you have said it beautifully when you said you were facing the trauma, whatever you were experiencing with your mom, and you were using alcohol to do so. Would you be open to share with people what kind of trauma you were facing?
If I go back to my really early childhood, it was more subtle and more stuff I was unaware of, like my mum not being available and physically abandoning me at good places, I guess, but just I think she took a lot out of me. I'm realizing now because of the situation with my biological father, where she, in a sense, had me because he was quite well off, his family was. And so the situation with having me was to sort of get her piece of that. But when that didn't pan out the way she wanted, I think that sort of, and she was younger than me. So I can see how at that point, and, you know, definitely didn't go into any of the sort of responsibility and tools to sort of deal with her emotions that I've gone into. So I can just only imagine at that age what she would have felt and gone through, and maybe held on to that resentment and I guess taken it out then on the closest thing, or the thing that was to do with that situation. And so I think all my life that's why I got treated so differently compared to my siblings, because there was that separate situation with my biological dad, and maybe I just reminded her of that, and, you know, that thing that she wanted and failed to get. And it came up again actually as a late teenager, where she got a hold of information where she could claim victims' compensation because of a sexual experience that I'd had. So she didn't tell me that she applied for victims' compensation on my behalf to, again, get something that she thought she was entitled to for, you know, with using me. And so that's what really came up when I was around 19, learning about that, where she'd, you know, unbeknownst to me, got hold of this money to sort of, I guess, profit off my own situation and unfortunate situation. So yeah, that really just like hit me and destroyed me, that she had said to people like family, friends, that she deserved it. From one of the most, you know, one of the most traumatic things to profit off that was just a huge betrayal to me and a huge you know, stab wound to me, like as a child. And I think because we always want that love from our parents, and when we don't feel that, it's the most crushing thing. Like, even after all the things that I've been through with her, you know, there's that part of me that still wants, like, oh my gosh, I just want a really good relationship with my mom, because that's what makes us feel safe. And, you know, we see other people have it, and I think I just wasn't exposed enough to people that didn't have that. It all just looked so nice on the outside for everyone else. And so that sort of, I had a lot of grief around that as well, of not having that and feeling like I'd lost that. Because I think when I was a child, I wasn't so aware of not having that, if that makes sense. You know, as a child, to keep ourselves safe, we make excuses for our parents if they're, you know, if they're not giving us what we need, or if they're scared, you know, if we're fearful of them, we'll make excuses about why that's okay. So, because we don't have any other options. But yeah, there was just a lot of fear from my mum, because she would change so quickly and would be so easily blame things on me. And so I felt like I wasn't welcome in that family, and that I wasn't wanted or wasn't loved, or, you know, it would just be better if I wasn't part of it. And to that extent, I was excluded at times, and, you know, that was so painful for me, because I didn't see my little brother and sister going through that. And yeah. And I think it's important to note that so many people see physical abuse as, you know, the most traumatic for a child, but I think not getting that love and that sort of approval and that support from your key parent can be just as traumatizing, but it's just so I guess a little bit less dramatic or unseen. And she was physical at times, but that really wasn't her most hurtful part that she would do, and I wasn't the only one that sort of bared the brunt of her cruelness, but I was the closest one there for so long and the one that was really easy target. So yeah, it's been a really long journey to we make things mean something else when we're younger, very immature brain, undeveloped brains.
Yes.
And so just trying to reframe that and maybe understand why that happened or why she did that has been really interesting and really powerful with getting over that and moving forward.
Wow. Thank you so much for being so brave, because that would have been a hard story to say, especially like when you say it, you will like picture back to the time where you feel unloved, even though now you know that you are loved and you choose yourself and etc. So thank you so much for being so brave. And for those who are listening and watching, I just want to let you know that you are not alone, and that like what you said, like we see everyone else having a happy family, but that's only the external things. You don't know what is actually happening within that family. Did you say you had sexual abuse?
It wasn't sexual abuse. It was sort of like an early sexual encounter that went wrong, I guess, with someone at school, and it was just very very humiliating and very public. And when she found out about that, she sort of used it to almost make it about her and how
I also want to say how the way that you have said it is saying that your mom also has her own story, and that is why she could only deal with whatever the situation was the only ways that she knew how. So for those who are listening and watching, if you are going through, I guess, I don't know, family issues, know that there are people out there who have been through things. I personally too have been through stuff similar to Indi, and I think we need to just be there for each other and know that we can get through it. How is your relationship with your mom now?
For my own emotional well-being, I think until I'm at a point where I know that I'm really solid and grounded in my own beliefs about myself, I'm not going to have any contact, and I haven't for about 5 years, because that's just what I've learned has been necessary. When I've tried to have that sort of minimal contact, she's just taken advantage of it, and it hasn't been nice. It's just sort of sent me back into that really dark place, I guess. So it's just been what's necessary for me. I mean, everyone's different, and I really hope that could be different in the future. But I think that will take a bit more work on my behalf, because it's more about how I'm reacting to those situations or what's being said. And I've sort of obviously heard things here and there, and I've had a really close situation that still rattled me, even though it wasn't directed at me. It was directed towards my grandma recently, or in the last couple of years. She's been on the receiving end of her sort of, verbal abuse, and just really nasty stuff that shouldn't, be said to my really sweet grandma. So just even hearing that and hearing how that's impacted her, I remember that night I still had a nightmare about it, because my subconscious is still a little bit rattled. And even hearing those types of things can be a bit uneasy for me. So I still know that there's a lot to sort of unpack and work through. And I think one of the things that made the biggest difference to me was working with a EFT practitioner. I mentioned that last time, the emotional freedom technique, because I found that was really a really powerful way to move through things more than conventional talk therapy, because it's sort of a combination of the talk therapy as well as the energy practices, because I found it felt really real for me that I tend to, and we've found that everyone does this, but we hold emotions in different parts of our bodies.
Yeah.
So tapping through and sort of unlocking and releasing that is really powerful, as well as talking with someone that you feel really comfortable to talk about those things too, because it sort of gives that a voice. But even for things that are too painful to talk about, there are other techniques that they use as well.
Yes. Thank you for being brave, for choosing yourself. And I just want to let people know that it is not selfish when you want to put up some boundaries so you can move forward, and you do choose the people that you want to have in your life. And just because they're family, you still need to put out boundaries, because you got to put yourself first. And yeah, and like you said, you know what, before you say some kids, they would have physical abuse at home maybe, but I personally feel like emotional abuse is equal or even greater than physical abuse, because your body holds so much emotion, like you said, and it's unseen. So how can people really know if it's healed, right? So would you like to talk about EFT with people actually?
Yeah, sure. And I think before I do that, it was, an interesting point that you mentioned, because even from the physical abuse we receive, what's often most traumatic about that situation is the things we make that mean, like they're hurting me, they don't love me, they don't care about me, so that's what stays with us. And obviously the visuals, that can be very traumatic to really relive. Putting up those boundaries can be really necessary. And when you've got someone like that in your family, it's very necessary. Like I've been trying to, or have over time, gotten my grandma to realize this, that it's not okay to just keep, being open to receiving that verbal abuse, anytime, like just to leave yourself open to that, especially when, she's not someone that's going to do some energy practices and release it. Like she's really going to take it on, and just like, that's so unhealthy to let it just sit in the body and be willingly sort of open to let that, to receiving that, by not having those boundaries. And unfortunately that can mean like blocking someone's number. And it's really hard, obviously, with family, because we think that because they're family, we have to have contact with them, and they can do anything and do things 1,000 times and we'll still forgive them. And it's not about not forgiving, but it's just, I guess, being conscious of how you feel in that person's presence, and how they feel that they can treat you at any given time, for unwarranted reasons, just to sort of be someone's punching bag. Like that's not healthy for either of you. So
it's the same with friends, romantic relationship, colleagues, in all aspects of your life, by the way, everyone. So
exactly.
Would you like to tell people about EFT?
Yeah, sure. So I actually came across it in a really good documentary. It was on FMTV at the time, which I now know has changed into Gaia.com, maybe .au, I think it is. But it's probably still there, and it's called E-Motion. So like E and then hyphen motion. And they kept mentioning this practice and how we, how important emotions are and how they get stuck in the body, and how it's some of the root of our pain and disease. And so that just got me really interested. And they kept showing these sort of pictures of people doing tapping on them. I'm like, this is bizarre, because I'd never had any other experience with it. And it wasn't even growing up in Byron area. I had no exposure to this, which is, I find, baffling, because it's one of those, alternative. Pardon?
Byron, as in Byron Bay?
Yeah, so I grew up in like the Byron Shire, in Byron Bay, and also in Mullumbimby for my whole childhood. So, but surprisingly, I wasn't exposed to this at all. I don't know if it just wasn't as popular then, or but I found it in this movie, and then that sort of led me to the Tapping Solution movie, where they had all these case studies of people with different sort of backgrounds and emotional and physical traumas and situations. And they sort of just did it with them for an intensive of, I don't know what it was, a week or something. And they just showed like the results basically in this movie. And so that then, got me onto just using it at home myself. But what kept coming up again and again was, if you have really deep trauma, if there's some really painful, traumatic feelings there, you probably want to work with a practitioner. And I've always been someone that's like, oh, I'm just going to do it myself. I've got this information here and this information here. But I think it got to that point where I was like, well, this is something that's been really overshadowing my whole life. I'm like, if I'm not going to, I've got this money here, why aren't I investing it in that sort of thing? Because it will change my whole quality of life. And so that's what I did. I started working with an EFT practitioner, and basically what they do is they go through the acupressure points on the ends of your meridians, which are your energy channels through your body. So in all these little end points, like at the tops of our fingers and on the end of our eyebrows there, and our eyes and under our eyes. And we were actually doing one this morning, Dayne and I. We were doing it on let go and let God, to surrender today. He's like, I think that's what you need. Just to let go of things, because as I said, like yesterday was a bit funky, I'm like, maybe we just need to let go, maybe we're trying to control it too much. So you can pretty much do it for anything and about anything. Like, it ranges all the way from just, I'm gonna feel good or change my mood, like reducing anxiety, to phobias. Like, I've heard of people getting rid of like their fear of heights and stuff, which is something I really do want to do, but hasn't been the top of my priorities yet. To dealing with really traumatic stuff. And it just, I think a lot of what happened was, as it got popular, a lot of psychologists started learning it, and they said the results that they were having in 6 years in psychotherapy or psychology, they were getting in 6 weeks. Everyone that has learned that, like as a psychologist, is like, oh my gosh, this is so much more efficient and effective with treating people and getting people unstuck. And I think that's because what I found was, when I was with a psychologist, we were talking about things, it was triggering it and bringing it up, all this emotion moving around in my body, but it didn't feel like it actually released, if that makes sense. I think it's because of how EFT works on the central nervous system, or in our amygdala, part of the brain that's our, nervous system, and is responsible for that response. So either in sympathetic, which is stress, or parasympathetic, where, we're calm and we're able to do all our normal bodily functions and heal and everything, and digest. So I guess that's the way, because it's sending that calming signal to the brain, that part of the brain, the amygdala, that it's okay. So we're sort of thinking about these things, they're traumatic, but then we're sending that signal to that part of the brain that it's okay. Like, it's not saying, it didn't happen, or trying to
deny it. It's more
exactly. It's more acknowledging it and being like, that's happened in the past, but like, we're okay now. We're okay. And it just sort of has that effect on the brain of like, not thinking that stuff's still happening. Because I think that's what happens a lot of the time when we think about really painful things or a situation. We're imagining that fearful thing, and our body thinks that that's happening right now, or that we're in immediate danger, which, really most of the time is not happening, especially in our day-to-day things where we're stressed about stuff. So it's just like telling the body, like, we're not going to die, like, it's okay. But without sort of without denying and belittling that part of us that feels that, it's still giving it a voice, and like speaking like, I still love myself even though I'm feeling this way. So we're still giving that part of us a voice, and it's okay to feel that way without, shaming it or denying it.
for those who are listening and watching, if you're interested, I will leave the movie details in the description. I will get that out for you later.
Yeah, and just even YouTube's a really good free tool. Tapping, I might have mentioned it with Tap with Brad Yates. He has like 1,000,001 movies for every single emotion that you could feel. You literally just have to type in Brad Yates and the nearest emotion that you're feeling, and you'll probably find a little video that talks exactly what you're feeling right now.
Yes.
It's crazy because we're not so different to other people, you know, we're all sort of feeling those same sort of things and thinking those things.
We're all humans. And I also want to tell people that there are many ways to heal yourself. Like, you don't, I guess, if you are too shy to go to a psychologist at the moment, I guess speak to people first. And like you said, you know, YouTube is so, I guess, with vast knowledge at the moment. But in saying that, I also want you to be smart about what you are watching, because some people out there don't have great intentions. Oh wow, like, how can we let people know? Well, you know what? If you just want great, amazing knowledge, subscribe to Living Holistically with Dayne and Indi, because they are the people who have honestly experienced that stuff, and they are doing everything from the heart space.
And we can't wait to do a whole season on emotional stuff, because that's really where we'll get into it and have some guests that we love and share more tools that we found. Because I talk about EFT, but that's really just one of many, and probably just the one that has been the most transformational in my life. But obviously everyone's body is different, everyone's situations, you know, can be different, and the way that they like to deal with something, you know, for some people that might be uncomfortable to work with an EFT practitioner or talk about that stuff. You know, I know it's really that's probably true for a lot of guys. Like, guys don't generally like to cry it out with an EFT practitioner while tapping on themselves. I know that's just a very general statement, but I know if Dayne was here, he'd probably agree with that. So his way is sort of more of a conscious surrendering of things, and also more of, I guess, a logical thing of like gradually undoing that story, but at the same time, you know, finds EFT valuable. So I guess it really depends, but we will definitely share more of those tools. And Sedona method actually was one of the things that came up with that ex-boyfriend, and that was one of the things when he found out that I was dealing with some really heavy emotions and that were really debilitating. He showed me this method that he'd learned. It's called the Sedona method, I guess because the people were originally in Sedona, Arizona, you know, in the States. But basically it's that surrendering technique. It's a conscious surrender. And I think that's probably why it resonated with him as a male, because you're basically just choosing to surrender. Whereas I guess for me, I needed something, I was maybe a bit more stubborn with it and needed that physical release, because I stored so much in my body. Like whenever I'm even slightly stressed, my back just like, it senses it. It's like, you need to like listen to this. A little bit now, but mostly when I was younger, especially like in high school and late teens, early 20s, it would get so bad that like I literally just had to sit there with a hot water bottle and not do anything. And it would come on at work and I would just, you know, be in such agony, and there wasn't anything sort of like the osteopaths and chiropractors that would sort of release it, just like, you know, a hot water bottle sort of would, but it wasn't dealing with the root cause. And so that's why I was like, I just think it's definitely emotional. Like, it's not structural, and you can tell in yourself when it is. Or even I know that I tend to have accumulated and held a lot of emotional energy and tension in my stomach. And so one of the things that I've explored, because I have a friend that has learned Reiki and practicing Reiki, you know, that's another, I guess, energy work, and seems really, really woo-woo. And that's why I just wanted to feel it, because I think it's not something that people can describe to you. It's something that you actually have to experience. But basically, you can sort of feel that electric energy between you and them, the person that's with you. And you know, when you can just feel that sort of like tingle, like that's probably the best way to describe it for someone that hasn't had it. And what I could feel in my stomach was like this tight ball of energy. And as she moved down, doing the Reiki on my body, it sort of then moved down my body and released out. So that was a really bizarre experience, because I know as well everyone's experiences with that are different, because obviously, you know, not everyone's going to have a tight ball of energy in their belly. But yeah, so things like that you can't really explain, you know, but it obviously works on some level because we're energetic beings. And yeah, it's interesting to explore those different things for yourself, because you won't know until you just try it.
Yes, you're spot on right there. And everyone's experience is different. And as much as Indi can talk about her own experience, about how amazing she felt after, how would you know with yourself? Because your body is your individual.
And that's what I've sort of learned as well from delving into all these different practices of, I guess, trying to relieve some of my own pain physically, you know, and emotionally, is that when you see other people, you know, rave about this for results, that really doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the same experience. So I think that constant chasing for like the one that, you know, everyone says is going to like fix you and be cured of, you know, all your emotional and physical pain, it's more of an accumulative thing. As we say, it's, you know, it's a combination fried rice. It's so many different elements and things and experiences and practices. Like, it's just, I think it's more so getting to the understanding that everything accumulates and you haven't wasted your time and energy, nor should we be holding on to the fact that, you know, this is going to be the thing that relieves all that and gets rid of all that, because I've stopped trying to fix myself and sort of knowing that things, as I use these tools and practices, are just naturally like it's naturally unfurling and pulling back the layers. And so I'm naturally, I guess, shedding some of that gunk and garbage that I was holding on to. But it's such a slow process. You know, I can have a situation where it feels like I've purged all this stuff, you know, and it just feels like so much has come out. But then, and my friend has said this as well about, you know, a lot of people do ayahuasca to sort of work through that trauma. But it's, again, just because it's one purge and one letting go, it doesn't mean that everything's gone. Like, this friend's done multiple and there's still stuff there to let go of. And I think when we have the expectation, and I did for so long, that it's just going to be one time, you know, I'm just going to do this really, really powerful thing and then it's all going to be gone. Like, you sort of crushed because, that didn't happen. But I think just learning to be okay with that it's a process, and that I don't have to be fixed right now or really soon to enjoy life. I think the other thing that's important to note is that she was saying, and also what I've experienced when you do that sort of thing, is if there's no integration afterwards, it's kind of useless. You know, if you get all these insights and stuff and downloads and you see things more clearly, if you're not then integrating that back into your normal life that's chaotic and things come up, then it's sort of just like that was over there and, you know, you didn't take anything from it except maybe purged a little.
And I also feel like you have brought up many great points. Like you said, everyone's experience is different. Because you are so right. It's like yoga practice, you know, like everyone when they go to yoga and they're like, oh, I need to do this pose, I must do whatever. But everyone's body is different. Everyone's experience is different. And I also love how you are reminding people that it is a slow process. It is a very slow process. Like, we're continuing to learn more about ourselves and learn how to really live a quality life. So of course it's gonna be a slow process, and don't beat yourself up for, I guess, not letting go as soon as you feel like you should.
I definitely had those expectations going into all this sort of thing. And then that led to, disappointment when it didn't happen. But if I look back at, as I was talking about when I was 18, 19, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have made so much progress. Like we're talking about this today. It's not about where other people are or, where you think you should be. It's like, well, just a few years ago, I was over there, just knowing myself out, like overwhelmed and crying. I can still cry a lot now, but my point is, I guess I look back and I remember that feeling and how I felt and how my intention and just everything I felt was different about my life and my perspective on things.
Yeah, so proud of you, girl. Thank you for keeping on working on yourself so you can help others too.
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
exactly.
that is, I feel like ultimately that's what we're all doing, because that is why it's not selfish to work on yourself. And when you don't know how to look after yourself or have that self-love, I would like you to ask yourself that question, like, what kind of love are you really giving for other people? That is something you can ponder on.
This made me think, this is kind of funny, but I just wanted to, I guess, stop that trauma and stop the repeated cycles, because I think when, I've probably wanted to be a mum since I was a little kid, which sounds bizarre, I know, but just always had that very maternal instinct. So when I think about, oh my gosh, like me having a kid, I'm like, I've got to sort my shit out so I can be the best I can for them and not put the same stuff on, it can be unintentional, but like I would probably still do it if I didn't deal with my shit, because that's probably what happened with my mom, or, I know that that's what happened. So it's so important because, making, as cheesy as it sounds, but like making yourself the best, obviously, then in turn makes you be able to provide and share the best with humanity and do the best for humanity. Because like when you're hurt, you don't want to do anything for anyone.
Hurt people. And when you can choose anybody, choose yourself. So when you said about when you were younger, you found out about your kidney, is that when you are more, I guess, aware about nutrition?
Not really. I think my nutrition was already pretty good because of my upbringing. I had an auntie that I spent a lot of my childhood with, like about up until I was 5, I was with them most of the time, and she was an amazing cook and had taught my mum to cook and, to buy organic and stuff. So like a lot of my childhood was really good quality organic food, most of it's grown up there as well in Byron Bay, like area. So I think I already sort of always had that awareness and was always cooking and encouraged to cook. And, there's pictures of me as like a little 2-year-old or 3-year-old, like baking and stirring. I'll have to try and get those. But yeah, I think always having an interest in food and really enjoying food. I think I watched my friends around me have eating disorders, but I was like the absolute opposite, and guess couldn't relate because I just loved food and was always like, and I don't mean to say that an eating disorder is not loving food, but I guess I just never had, I guess, a negative relationship with food. But as I got older, obviously, and started to care more about my health was when I got more into what actually was, good healing food, because that mattered so much at the time and, still matters to me today, obviously, because I went sort of rebelled, I guess, and, wanted to have all those processed foods that I didn't have much growing up, because I was like, oh, I can just eat whatever I want. It doesn't impact me. And it didn't up until having really strong and multiple rounds of antibiotics and being on the contraception pill. So it didn't up until a point, but like every body has their point, you're just sort of slowly moving away from perfect health, and everybody has a point where they won't really be able to recover. Their system can't handle it. And that's when, your body, you'll just feel it. You'll start to get symptoms and your body will start to break a little, I guess. And just won't have, the energy and, need to sleep heaps because your body just wants to repair itself more.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Point for people who are younger, because I think a lot of times when people they are in their early teens, they're like, I'm still young, that's okay, I still got X amount of life to live or whatever. But everyone, like, you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. and
Yeah,
also, like you said, your body has a point. The more bad food that you are
exactly.
taking in,
And because it's so addictive as well, it's probably, if I could redo it, obviously I wouldn't have started eating those foods that were so highly addictive, or even I hadn't been exposed to much junk food because Byron Shire has a ban on any sort of McDonald's or KFC coming into it. So you have to drive like an hour to reach one, which is good. But at the time, I think having that sort of overload of different foods and fast food available to me, like moving to Melbourne and stuff, it just sort of, I was like a little kid in a candy shop. I was like, I can just buy whatever I want and eat whatever I want. And, it's so enjoyable. It's so like that sort of food is just made to hit all those, sweet senses. And also most of the time we have quite high yeast like in our gut, and those, I guess, opportunic yeast and bacteria are the ones that give us those cravings for sweet food, because that's what feeds them. So they sort of have an insatiable craving for that sort of thing. So no matter how much you have, it'll always want more, and it will just keep feeding off that and growing and sort of, tipping your health over, I guess.
And I was gonna say, I feel a lot of people underestimate how big of a role food is in our life. So what would you like people to be more aware of? Perhaps maybe eat less of.
Has Indi's story resonate with you? Are you facing any difficulties with your family and you're unsure how and where to start to resolve it? Honestly, my loves, please don't be afraid to reach out. If you are not having the best time right now in your life, well, please know that just take one step at a time. And maybe today it's your first step to recognizing that you need to talk to somebody. Maybe it's the first step that you recognize that you need some quality sleep. Or maybe it's your first step to knowing that you do need to be responsible for your own life. Whatever journey you're going through, please know that you don't have to go through it all by yourself. Indi's details are in the description, so is the podcast details. Now go and subscribe to their podcast because I know that you need some quality sleep. Do continue on to watch part 2, and please also do a screenshot and tag me on social. I would highly appreciate the love. Now don't forget to subscribe, click the thumbs up button if you have loved it, and share it with someone because you never know what they're going through. By the way, I mean it. If you feel like you have a story that you would like to share, contact me, get in touch. I would honestly love to hear your story. And remember, you are amazing and you are not alone. I will see you next time.